And here I was in a sort of a glowing or a ghost-like entity drifting around, not really touching the ground.
Alec Newald claims he was abducted by aliens, and his recollection of the experience is one of the most comprehensive about aliens anyone has ever discussed.
I got this, through this third-party connection, I got an invite to actually take part in what you might call a seance, a cult gathering, and it was a full, eyes wide shut caper.
Join us as we look at the man who was abducted by aliens and revealed the truth.
And it sort of froze when this thing sort of, if it had a face, was looking at me.
Alec Newald. The testimony of Alec Newald, a New Zealander, has become the hottest topic of debate among conspiracy theorists and alien enthusiasts. The man says he was taken by aliens in February 1989 during his 3-hour trip from Rotorua to Auckland. The man, who is now 70 years old, admitted that this journey altered his entire concept of the universe and extraterrestrial life. On that fateful day, Newald claimed to have been taken by a group of aliens and then spent 10 days in an advanced alien culture. Interestingly, when he arrived in Auckland, he was startled to learn that Monday had become next week's Thursday, 10 days after beginning his journey. Surprisingly, the extraterrestrial abductee had no idea how he had spent those days. After returning to life, Alec Newald wrote a book called Co-Evolution on his experiences during the alien abduction. When speaking on the paranormal radio show As You Wish Talk Radio, he detailed what happened on the day he was abducted. He was driving his automobile, and it felt like a ton of bricks had fallen on him, as if someone had poured cement all over him. He felt forced against the seat of his automobile, was paralyzed, unable to spin the wheel, apply the brakes, or do anything. Newald also recounted the moment he awoke after being abducted. He saw neon lights everywhere, and the alien abductee assumed he was dead and in the hereafter. Newald revealed that he witnessed 3 alien entities, one tall, one short, and one very small. He also stated that the extraterrestrial beings had neither noses nor ears. He had a tiny mouth but no ears or nose to speak of. His physical look, however, was of little concern, as Newald was immediately struck with an almost overwhelming sense of his presence. He cannot claim that it was hypnotic, rather, the contrary. His physique seemed to absorb and project his energy. It was the experience of a lifetime, and he will never forget it. In our thumbnail, we can see Alec Newald being interviewed, but could the interviewer be the cute little alien we see on the right pic? Why don't you let us know what you think in the comments below. Journey from Rotorua to Auckland. Alec Newald disappeared for 10 days when he was supposedly taken to another planet. He boarded a 3-hour flight from Rotorua to Auckland, New Zealand, on a Monday in mid-February 1989. He arrived fatigued and puzzled, but he was even more perplexed to see that Monday had passed, and it was now Thursday, 10 days later, with no knowledge what had transpired in the interim. Following his journey, he discussed how a consciousness drives a spacecraft that fuses and is aware of itself, which is something they have frequently stated is conceivable in the upper worlds. The aliens who carried Alec aboard their ship were technologically adept, like humans, and could boost their vibrations with biological technology, making their bodies less dense and thus capable of traveling through space. They could grow as much as plants and animals desired, and the houses developed and became sensitive, while the boats obeyed their commands. His vehicle was a biological animal-vegetable mix. They communicated through their consciousness, which was an integral component of the vehicle itself. Instead of eating, they drank a solution that resembled monatomic gold. His incredible experiences are of great importance for the future of humanity and our galactic cousins. 3 hours journey turned to 10 days. In February 1989, while traveling from Rotorua to Auckland, New Zealand, Alec was abducted by extraterrestrials and transported to an advanced civilization. He remained there for 10 days. As if that wasn't bizarre enough, once he returned home, he began receiving visits from officials who wanted to learn more about his experiences, particularly the capabilities of this extraterrestrial race. He was drawn into a hazardous and secretive society, a world consisting of advanced technology and secret goals carried out by personnel whom few have ever encountered, let alone survived. He told everyone that none of this had ever crossed his mind prior to 1989. In mid-February of that year, his 41st birthday, he received a wake-up call, or a call to duty. It was designed only for him. As a result, it was quiet, discreet, and masterfully executed. To the rest of the world, he would have appeared to have perished in a car accident on a winding mountain road with no witnesses and no one else to blame. This was going to be an open and shut matter with no questions to be answered. At least that was the intention, as he he discovered some time later. As it turned out, that plan was only partially carried out since, despite the counsel of his wise elder brothers and sisters, he chose to forego the finality of death on Earth for the time being and carry on as before. The only difficulty was that he could never go on as before, for a variety of reasons. Number one among those many reasons was that he couldn't forget what happened once it was lodged in his mind. This rapidly led to the following argument, which is whatever he thought he knew about himself before the February 1989 encounter was incorrect. That left him with the potential that the same could apply to others, or even all of us. It stretched even further. Nothing he'd ever been told about Earth's history or current state in the grand scheme of things was correct, not by a long stretch. According to Newald, we have been fed erroneous knowledge since the day we were born, as have previous generations throughout history. It's a difficult pill to swallow, and knowing this makes it harder to go on with your life as if nothing has changed. Perhaps even more surprising was that, except for a few, the more he attempted to impart this information, the more difficult his life got. He was alienated by those he expected to support him. In fact, even before he attempted to divulge any of the details, he discovered that his life had become far more difficult. It became impossible to carry on as before. Nothing has changed as he reflects on his experience nearly 3 decades later. He cannot travel freely and is often treated like a second-class citizen in his own nation. Alien abduction. Abduction claims are on the absolute outskirts of ufology. I try to give them fair consideration because practically anything we may imagine is feasible. However, this account has a huge flaw. The abductee only encountered one species out of the millions that potentially exist in the universe. A single experience cannot capture the diversity of intelligent life that exists. Your experience would differ according to the alien's viewpoint. For example, meeting violent aliens like Klingons is not the same as meeting friendly aliens like Vulcans. After returning to normal life with no memory of the occurrence, Alec continued to have symptoms and ultimately remembered being transported to an extraterrestrial metropolis with circular and pyramid-shaped buildings. The aliens shared old knowledge about Earth's history, indicating that humanity was created approximately 70,000 years ago and that humans and aliens were connected. However, after disclosing his experiences, Alec was subjected to extreme scrutiny and persecution by different institutions. He published a book, Co-Evolution, an interplanetary adventure, to tell his narrative, but contradictions and outlandish assertions raised doubts. Many people found the story intriguing, but many were concerned about discrepancies and stressed the significance of conducting rigorous research on such audio interview. In an audio interview on a show called As You Wish Talk Radio, Alec Newald discussed his childhood and our three-dimensional reality. He described his encounter with aliens after he was abducted while he was on his way to Auckland. He talked about an elder race and soul immunity, as well as the all-too-infamous AI. Many people listening to him on the channel were amazed by the intricate details when he was describing something. Newald came across as authentic and real, but most people had a hard time believing his story. Nevertheless, he didn't stop talking about it because he felt it was important for people to know about it. He meets 3 aliens. During his abduction, Alex Newald recounts meeting 3 different aliens. He believes he recognized he was being approached by 3 aliens, the tallest of which resembled his previous escort. The second one was just slightly shorter and, as best as he could determine, was male. The third was much smaller and walked ahead of the first 2. He had a modest build, a roundish head, and odd, squinty eyes that were well spaced and lower than ours. He had a tiny mouth, but Newald didn't spot any ears or nose. His physical look, however, was of little concern because he was immediately struck by an almost overwhelming sense of his presence. His physique seemed to absorb and project his energy. As he progressed, he claimed to have seen tangible objects emerge that resembled structures, and the entities that led him there began to manifest physically. He alleges they then instructed him to enter a machine that would build a body for him, and he witnessed his body form beneath him. According to him, the aliens were attempting to recreate themselves so they might live on Earth. As if his reported encounter wasn't bizarre enough, he began to get visits from officials who wanted to learn more about his adventures, particularly the capabilities of this extraterrestrial race, after he returned to Earth. Meeting the Guardian. When the 3 aliens approached Newald, the tallest of them looked like a female escort. This wasn't the aliens he'd read about or seen beautifully described in magazines or newspapers. The size was about right, 4 feet tall with a slender frame. According to Newald, the alien greeted him and informed him that he was the selected guardian of that region. Anything he felt he needed to make his time with them more comfortable was to be asked of this guardian, who assured Newald that he would do his best to provide it. The extraterrestrial informed Newald that the suit he had been given would allow him to comprehend them and vice versa. Newald reasoned that the alien must have read his mind as he entered the room, because he had just inquired about the suits. The alien claimed that they did not speak in that manner, as he may have observed. When communicating across great distances, a spoken sound message may have been required. The alien stated he would not query whether Newald wished to stay or return at that time. He hoped his objective was to gain more knowledge and insight before making his decision, and that the aliens were unable to reveal certain information to him at that time. The alien told Newald he would have the chance to acquire some considerable knowledge on a wide variety of subjects, including his own species, before he made up his mind about leaving or staying. Abduction Experience, Book Coevolution. When Alec returned to our planet, it was clear right away that some government entity was aware of his off-world experience and wanted as much information as possible. 2 DSIR scientists from New Zealand paid him a visit, eager to learn more about topics they should never have known about. It quickly became clear that these 2 gentlemen were not from the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research at all. The persecution persisted and worsened, with his apartment broken into multiple times. Despite Alec's constant attempts to shake these people off his track, their demeanor was constantly menacing, and when Alec flatly refused to collaborate with them, they began to play hardball. It's impossible to tell this story adequately in such a short video, but the entire experience was unbelievable. From beginning to end, it is one of the greatest documented and depicted abduction instances ever witnessed. During Alec's trip, he got access to ancient archives of Earth's history, which spins a story that will help to piece together a far larger picture of how our planet evolved. The Arrival, from his book. After Newald arrived on the alien world, the first thing he noticed about the metropolis was its neatness and order. The second was its size. Even from above, he couldn't see the boundaries. There may be larger cities on Earth, but this one would be considered large on Earth. It spread out in both directions, following the coastline beyond his line of sight. There appeared to be only a tiny strip of land that was not coastal or desert, with the city trapped between it. As they descended in altitude, the sea lost its bluish hue and became practically black. There couldn't have been any wind because it seemed incredibly glassy. He could make out a dark outline not far off the coast, indicating a deep drop-off from the coastal shallows. The last thing that struck Newald was the scarcity of big buildings, except for the odd tower or two, and the prevalence of little circular shapes among a few larger pyramid-shaped structures. The craft had settled in less than a minute after entering the atmosphere. He felt both anxiety and excitement. Now that he was there, whatever there was, he began to realize what had happened to him. Would he ever see home again? Was anyone searching for him? His alarm quickly subsided, and curiosity gained the day. He anxiously searched the viewer to get his first close glimpse at the alien scene. He could see an area of level ground, like a courtyard, leading to 2 pyramid-shaped buildings. They appeared to be constructed of a substance like tinted glass or semi-transparent plastic. He couldn't see the tops of these buildings from his vantage point, but he later discovered that they were crowned with a spiral tower or antenna configuration. The tower added approximately 25% to the building's height. Each structure was topped with what he could only characterize as a massive light bulb. As strange as it seemed, he was certain he had seen something like this in the distant past. These lights blazed day and night, and upon closer study, appeared to be made of a net or mesh rather than glass. There appeared to be some type of electromagnetic grid or shielding equipment over the landing spot, potentially a force field or energy harvesting device. There was a short walk to one of the enormous structures he had noticed from inside the vessel. The air was motionless and incredibly quiet. Indeed, it wasn't until he got out of the transporter that he realized there must have been some background noise on board, which he hadn't noticed at the time. The surface on which he was walking resembled cork. It appeared porous and slightly giving underfoot. The entire arrival was surreal and unbelievable, but this is how Newald described it. 2 species of humans. The phrase Homo sapiens translates to wise humans in Latin. Homo sapiens exhibits several features. To begin with, contemporary primates are classified as a diverse group of mammals. Homo sapiens have a more erect stance than other animals, who are slumped and leaned down. They move primarily with 2 of their limbs, whereas most mammals use all 4. It has also been discovered that Homo sapiens have significantly larger brains in proportion to their body size than other creatures. This trait is frequently attributed to their high intelligence and the behavioral qualities they exhibit, such as tool use and verbal communication. Humans are the only primates without feet that allow them to grab objects. Hence, they are frequently researched separately from other Homo sapiens for a variety of reasons. According to radiometric dating, the earliest known Cro-Magnon remains date from 35,000 to 45,000 years ago. The oldest remains, dating from 43,000 to 45,000 years ago, were discovered in Italy and Britain. Other relics demonstrate that Cro-Magnons arrived in the Russian Arctic around 40,000 years ago. Cro-Magnons had muscular bodies that were often heavy and substantial, with strong muscles. Cro-Magnons, unlike Neanderthals, possessed straight foreheads, like contemporary humans. Their faces were short and broad with a prominent chin. Their brains were slightly larger than the typical person's nowadays. Cro-Magnons, like most early people, hunted primarily huge animals. For example, they hunted mammoths, cave bears, horses, and reindeer for food. They hunted with spears, javelins, and spear throwers. They also ate fruit from plants. Cro-Magnons lived nomadic or semi-nomadic lifestyles. This means that rather than settling in one location, they followed the migratory habits of the animals they wished to hunt. They may have built hunting camps out of mammoth bones. Several of these structures were discovered in a village in Ukraine. They also built shelters out of rocks, clay, tree branches, and animal hide. Spirituality believes. In 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19, it states that the human body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in all of us and was given to everyone by God. It says that we do not belong to ourselves. Christianity believes in saving the soul and not letting your flesh or your body dictate your life. The same applies to Islam, and this is why some misguided people twist this concept to make people become suicide bombers because they believe their souls will be redeemed and that the body is nothing more than a container. They believe that real life begins after doomsday and that this is not our real life. They believe that this world is a paradise for pagans and a hell for Muslims. Xena. Xena is one of the aliens that Alec Newald met when he was abducted by aliens in 1989. She informed Alec that the aliens were fundamentally from the future. It didn't matter if it was 6 minutes or 6 years, they could choose either. However, for them, things were not that simple because they came from another dimension, not quite the same as humans, but close. As a result, they could be described as time-traveling interdimensional beings. Xena also stated that their sun was gradually dying, and they were feeling the impacts of its radiation. They were gradually losing their atmosphere. This could be overcome to some extent, but not indefinitely. Xena explained that they had been searching for a new environment for many Earth years. The ideal solution was Earth, but they couldn't handle our gravity, among other things. Otherwise, they would have already moved here. Who says it isn't already the case? Even if Newald depicted them as lovely tiny angels dedicated solely to our enlightenment, they were there to ensure their own survival, not ours. Underwater base. Xena talked about an underwater base where she and her people live on Earth, and the fact that she is in contact with the people in power, sharing knowledge with them to share with the rest of mankind. But the decision makers deemed that the population was not ready for this message. Is all this true, or did it just come out of the mind of Alec Newald? Why don't you let us know what you think in the comments below? I must admit that Alec Newald's story is mind-boggling, but the skeptic in me tends to believe that the entire story is a figment of his imagination. Which one was your favorite? Why don't you let us know in the comments below? Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give us a like and let us know in the comments what you think. Check out our other videos and subscribe to be part of the fun. Click on the notification icon so you can see our new videos as soon as they're uploaded. Thank you for watching and see you next time.